Okay. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Dr. Rigo Rodriguez. I'm the board president for the Education Board for Santa Ana. It's a pleasure to see you all here, and now we have a quorum and we have more folks here tonight, so let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. And the first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I believe that the flag is in that direction. I'm going to trust that whoever told me was telling me the truth. Okay, more people are pointing in that direction. Okay, so go ahead and put your hand, hopefully over your heart if you'd like, and let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. So the way the agenda is going to work today is I'm going to provide some overall statements at the very beginning, and then we are going to hand it over to our legal counsel, who will walk us through some more detail on what we're going to do today and where we're at in the process. After our legal counsel shares that information on, again, where we're at in the process, then we'll open it up for public presentations. The reason our legal counsel is going to take some time to kind of go over the process is that we have had different folks show up at each meeting, and that's okay. We just want to make sure that everyone here, if this is your first meeting or your second meeting, that everybody is on the same page around what we'll be doing tonight and the steps that we have taken to get to today. After legal counsel again goes over the details, then we will open it up for public comments as we have done in the past sessions. So members of the public, yourselves in particular, you will have a chance to share your thoughts around the maps that we are considering for tonight, and any other suggestions you may want to give. After the session closes, the public comment section closes, then we'll bring it back to a discussion item as a board, and at that point, any board member can put forward a motion on which map and sequencing to adopt. So with that, that's the broad overview of what we'll be doing today. Again, welcome. Thank you for being here. So welcome to the Santa Ana Unified School District's public hearing on the California Voting Rights Act, or CVRA, as it is commonly known. The purpose of today's public hearing is to provide the community with information about the CVRA and to also receive input from the public on the composition of the proposed maps for the 5 trustee areas that will be created. The district's demographer, I think we've already covered this part, right, in the last 2 sessions. So I'm going to just mention some few points. These I've mentioned at every one of the meetings. But again, in case this is your first day, I just want to make sure you also hear about this. So the CVRA, the California Voting Rights Act, is a state law. It's a state law which prohibits at-large voting systems that impair the ability of racial or ethnic minorities to elect the candidate of their choice. The CVRA favors district-based election systems in which candidates must reside in a trustee area, and only the voters residing in that area, that trustee area, would vote for those candidates. This means that beginning in 2022, voters in those trustee areas up for election in 2022 will vote for one candidate in their trustee area, and the remaining trustees will hold an election in 2024. The change in the election system will not affect school attendance boundaries. And I am now then going to turn it over to our legal counsel, who will walk us through, again, what the board motion was back in, I think, August, and kind of the steps we've taken and where we're at today.
Thank you very much, Board President Rodriguez, for that introduction. For those of you in the audience, I'm Ron Wenkart, legal counsel for the district in this process. The purpose of today's public hearing is to closer. purpose of today's public hearing is to provide the community with an opportunity to provide input to the board regarding the adoption of trustee area maps under the California Voting Rights Act. The process began on August 10th, 2021, when the board initiated the process to transition from an at-large election system to a trustee area system. In a trustee area system, voters in the trustee area vote for one candidate to represent them on the board. The candidate must reside in that trustee area. A minimum of 4 public hearings must be held as part of the process. The district may also conduct community meetings. It was decided at the August 10th board meeting that since all of the board members wanted to attend the community meetings and hear community input, that the community meetings would be combined with special board meetings to comply with state open meeting laws, also known as the Brown Act. The board held 5 special board meetings on September 26th, October 18th, October 25th, November 8th, and tonight, December 6th. The first 3 public hearings discussed the criteria for developing the maps, and the last 2 hearings discussed the maps drafted by the demographer. For tonight's meeting, the board is considering 4 main scenarios of maps, which were posted on the district website last week. Following the brief overview of the process, the board will receive public input on the maps and will consider a motion to adopt a resolution choosing one of the maps. As part of the process of choosing a map, the board will also make a decision on the sequence of elections. Elections for 2 board seats must be held in 2022 and 3 board seats in 2024. Therefore, the board must decide which 2 board seats will hold elections in 2022 and which 3 board seats will hold elections in 2024. In each of the scenarios drafted by the demographer, you will notice that trustee areas 4 and 5 in the southern part of the district do not have an incumbent residing there. This is because the current board members live in the central and northern part of the district. When there are 2 trustee areas without an incumbent, the Orange County Committee on School District Organization reviews the recommended sequencing of the trustee areas and makes the final decision. If the board chooses a sequencing option that holds elections in trustee areas 1, 2, and 3 in 2024, then the county committee may choose to hold elections in trustee areas 4 and 5 in 2022. If the board chooses a sequencing option that holds elections in trustee area 1 in 2022 and trustee area 2 and 3 in 2024, the county committee will choose when elections will be held in trustee areas elections 4 and 5, either 2022 or 2024. Angela Banuelos from Cooperative Strategies, the district's demographer, and I will be available to answer any questions. The process does get a little complex sometimes. I will now turn the meeting back over to Board President Rodriguez. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Ron, who has been guiding us in this process and making sure that we're following the letter of the law as we go through this. So at this point, we are going to open it up for public comments, and I just want to make sure that you had a chance to, if you want to send us a public comment card. Has everyone had a chance to do that wants to speak? Okay. So before we do that, let me just call your attention to the big maps that you see at the tables. Those maps contain, what we've done in the past is, so you have the maps there. You can, if you want to just spread them across your table. We have 4 maps that have been submitted and are being considered. Why don't we do this? I'm just going to, before we start with public comments, if you can take 10 minutes and just review them, eyeball them, and then we'll open it up for public comments. And you could join other tables if you want to chit-chat and just discuss them. But again, there's 4 maps that are being considered. And for this one, just have a conversation, and then we'll open it up for public comments. So 10 minutes.
Hi, hello. Evening, everyone. So I'd just like to make a quick clarification of the maps being considered tonight. So we have scenario 1A, 2A, 3A, and scenario 4 being considered for tonight. Thank you.
3 more minutes, 3 more minutes.
Because that's not a question I can answer. Where, do you mean where everybody, where it didn't matter where you live? I believe that in 2005 there was a law passed where to protect of the special classes that we have to adopt this sort of and it was never changed in our district. It's been a while.
We have 1 more minute, 1 more minute. Oh.
And you do the same thing, you steal, and all that stuff, but it's the books. And then whoever brought the book, when it's picked, can explain a little bit why they like that book.
Okay,
So you
okay.
get like exposed to like 20 books at once.
Nice, nice. Did people bring good books or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There's some that were stolen.
That were stolen. That had someone else's name in it. Our time is up. Our time is up. I hope you found these, it was almost 15 minutes to just kind of talk through these options. And at this point, I'm going to open it up for public comments. This is your opportunity to share your thoughts, your reflections on the options that you see before you. And the mics are here. And I believe we have a list already. We have 3 minutes for public comments. And let me, I'm going to put this sideways so that, so that,
Sure. Sorry.
there you go.
Karen Alvarado. Hello, good evening, board members, Superintendent Meldares. My name is Karen Alvarado. I am lead organizer with OCO, and I am here this evening to speak on behalf and support of scenario number 4, up for consideration in tonight's meeting. I just want to thank the board, all the staff, and everybody just involved in this process for the opportunity to really involve the community and have their voices be heard. So I really want to applaud the board and everybody that's taken place and is able to do that. I also just want to take the opportunity to highlight that, given the modifications in the new maps, I just want to center that, you all really did hear the community and the feedback that was given, and the modifications really do show that. However, the scenario number 4 continues to be the only really community-driven process, right? Since the inception of it, it was the community that drew that map. And I think that when we talk about equitable representation, which is what the process here hopes to do, it starts with the process, right? It starts with that. And in being able to really highlight the voices of the people that have been here, meeting after meeting, public hearing after public hearing, it would really show that the board is hearing their concerns and is also taking into consideration their input. I also just want to notice that I noticed that the data analysis on our scenario number 4, community submitted map, is a little bit different from the data that we had analyzed previously. So I just want to invite the district and open up a dialogue to clear up any discrepancies that might maybe not be aligned, in meeting with the demographer and consultant that we've been working alongside to maybe see how it could better be aligned. But overall, again, just very thankful for the opportunity to really work with you all through this process and appreciate the support. Have a good evening. Miguel Hernandez.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. My name is Miguel Hernandez. I am here as a resident and a parent. I'm also the executive director for OCO, the Orange County Congregation Community Organization. My 2 daughters attend Seegersturm High School, and I just live 5 minutes away from here. So it is a pleasure to be here. I also want to thank the board and superintendent for carrying out this process in such an equitable and effective way to reach out to community members. I'm here also, of course, to support MAP 5 submission. As Karen mentioned, I think were some discrepancies as far as the data we gave you, but we'd love to open up a dialogue about that if that's necessary. Again, we really appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and all the board members and the staff have worked really hard to make this a clear and transparent process. And I look forward to continuing working with you and going forward on the process. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Actually, just a question of clarification, Miguel, there's no map 5? You meant map 4?
Yeah, did I say map 5?
I think you said map 5, but there's no map 5, so just,
Correction, map 4.
okay. Thank
Right
you.
here. I have it in front of me.
Sounds good. I just wanted to be clear.
Biff Baker.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, members of the board and superintendent. My name is Biff Baker. I actually did have a daughter who went to school in Santa Ana, but that was some time ago. And I'm here to speak also in favor of MAP 4. And I think I'm echoing mostly the points that were made before, that this is the only map generated by by direct community input. It's a very elegant and symmetrical map. And I think, as Karen Alvarado suggested, I think you should give some consideration to the possibility that our numbers don't match in computing the variance. However, the variance is still very good. So, thank you.
Blanca Ruelos.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Blanca Ruela, soy un líder comunitario de Oco y pertenezco a la Iglesia Episcopal del Mesías. Reconocemos el duro trabajo del distrito y del staff y los consultantes que han sido involucrados en este proceso. Les damos las gracias por darnos la oportunidad de expresar nuestras preocupaciones por lo que está pasando en nuestras comunidades. Lo que yo he visto en mi comunidad es que estamos repartidos en 3 categorías: alta, media y los más vulnerables. Y a nuestros alrededores están 4 o 5 escuelas, que son Méndez, Giro, Santana High School, Wilson y Wheeler. En estas escuelas fueron mis hijos y ahora mis nietos, y todos queremos para nuestros niños una educación escolar digna, porque se lo merecen. El escenario número 4, que tiene aporte directo y mantiene la integridad de todas nuestras comunidades, de interés para una representación equitativa y clara. En nuestro mapa, la evaluación de población es del 0.27% y la versión del distrito es más alta. Agradecemos al distrito de la manera más atenta. Le invitamos a un diálogo con nuestro demógrafo, el estar colaborando para aclarar las confusiones de nuestra población. Muchas gracias, muchas bendiciones.
Good evening. My name is Blanca Ruelas. I'm a community leader with OCO, and I belong to the Church of the Messiah. We recognize the hard work that the district and the staff and the constituents have done to be involved in this process. We thank you for the opportunity to express our concerns, because as in my community, I see that is divided, you can say, in 3 categories: high, medium, and the most vulnerable. And we are around 4 or 5 schools, which are Mendez, Hero, Santa Ana High School, and Wilson and Willard. And some of these schools my children attended, and now my grandchildren attend. And we all want a dignified school education for our children. Scenario number 4 is the only one that has direct contribution from the community, and it keeps the integrity of all our communities of interest for an equitable and clear representation in our map. The variance in our map is 0.27%, and the district's version is higher. We thank the district very cordially and invite a dialogue with the demographer that has been working to alleviate any confusions regarding the population. Thank you.
Ana Tutila.
Muy buenas noches, señores miembros de la mesa directiva, señor superintendente. Mi nombre es Ana Lidia Tutila, vivo en la Garcia Street Flower. Tengo mi hija que asiste en la Santa Ana High School y me congrego en Nuestra Señora de Santa Ana. Quiero darle las gracias de antemano por el esfuerzo laboral que han hecho como representantes del distrito escolar, haciendo un arduo trabajo para que nosotros entendamos lo que es la redistribución del distrito. Siendo nosotros una comunidad unida como una historia que tenemos, nos hacemos únicos con una misma cultura, con un mismo lenguaje, el trabajo, somos muy emprendedores, hacemos una ayuda mutua en conjunto y unimos esfuerzos. Así también participamos en subsanar nuestras necesidades
abogando para mejorar el alumbrado público, preservar nuestra historia, en tener más bibliotecas, más centros para jóvenes, servicios de salud mental, servicios legales, servicios de encontrar empleo y así sucesivamente. Nosotros como hispanos que somos, nos unimos y tratamos de salir adelante. Pero esta noche nosotros estamos aquí para apoyar colectivamente el escenario número 4 en el que nosotros hemos participado con nuestras opiniones conforme a nuestras necesidades, con representación equitativa, defendiendo límites sin cortes ni interrupciones, ni traspasamos nada en lo de la naturaleza, respetando así el máximo de la existencia de la población, es decir, también conservando lo que es el núcleo de lo que la ley manda, manteniendo así la integridad de nuestra comunidad con interés cultural en común. Nuestras escuelas también para que no sufran cambios radicales, para representar las diferentes áreas geográficas equitativamente, respetando que sea no mayor del 10% del distrito más poblado al menos poblado, para representación y respeto de todos, dando también nosotros el valor al voto para proteger el proceso electoral y la representación equitativa nuevamente, como principal pilar democrático. Hemos visto que en este escenario hay un poquito de variación, por lo que nosotros les peticionamos que si les gustaría realizar una reunión con nuestro demógrafo o con las personas que intervinieron para hacer este mapa. Nuevamente les agradecemos por todo el trabajo y gracias por habernos dado la oportunidad de participar. Pasen buenas noches.
Good evening. My name is Ana Lidia Tulia. I live in Garnsey Street, and I have Flower, and I have a daughter that attends Santa Ana High School, and I meet at Our Lady of Santa Ana. I want to thank you for the great effort and with the representatives and staff of the Santa Ana Unified School District, as well as the consultants and demographer. We are a united community with our own history. We are unique. We have the same culture, language, work, mutual help, and effort. We also help ourselves to help our needs. We advocate for better lighting, to preserve our history, more libraries, and youth centers, health services, and mental health services. We legal services and job search services, parking, and small business. As a collective, we are advocating for scenario number 4. We have given you our opinions regarding this according to our needs. It has equitable representation. It defines the boundaries without cuts, without interruptions, and we do not go beyond natural boundaries, and we respect existing boundaries, and we keep the center of the community. We keep the integrity of our communities with the common cultural interest, and we don't want our schools to suffer any radical changes, and to represent the different geographical areas equitably, respecting no more than 10% variance from the most populated district to the least populated one, in order to respect and represent everyone, to give value to everybody's vote, and to protect the electoral process and the equitable representation as a principal pillar of democracy. In this map, we see a variation of 0.27%, and we would like the district to keep an open mind, and we invite you to have a dialogue with our demographer and the people who worked together to create this map in order to clarify any situation. Thank you.
Fátima Paque.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Fátima Paque. Yo pertenezco a la Iglesia de San José en Santa Ana y soy voluntaria en la organización de OCO aquí presente. Quiero darle las gracias por dejarnos ampliar nuestra voz, que es la voz de las de las personas que estamos aquí en Santana, porque esto es una conexión que tenemos nosotros con la población, con nuestras autoridades educativas. Y quiero, por ejemplo, permitirme expresar que nosotros hemos trabajado por primera vez, en este caso conmigo, hemos trabajado con las organizaciones y hemos trabajado con ustedes en esta formación de mapas que es nuevo para nosotros, pero que es muy importante porque estamos viendo que las necesidades propias de nuestros niños, nuestra cultura, nuestro lenguaje, tiene que ser muy importante para que pueda seguir incluyéndose en cada una de las necesidades propias del distrito. Nosotros queremos, por ejemplo, tener que los beneficios que nosotros tengamos sean los beneficios no solamente para la comunidad latina que estamos aquí, sino también para las comunidades de otras índoles que han estado presentes aquí en Santana. Muchas gracias.
Good evening. My name is Fatima Paque, and I belong to the Church of San Jose in Santa Ana, and I live in French Park, and I volunteer for the OCO organization. And thank you for allowing us to express our opinions and to share with you. It's the first time that I've worked in this kind of situation with organizations and with you in creating these kinds of maps. It's important to do this because we can satisfy the needs of our children, which is culture and language, and this is important in order for the district to be included. And we want this to benefit not only the Latino community, but every other group that has been involved in this and is part of the community.
Laura Sandoval.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Laura Sandoval, soy líder comunitario de la organización de OCO y esta tarde estoy aquí porque me parece muy importante hablar del tema de la redistribución de los mapas. Para nosotros esto es completamente nuevo, pero creo que estamos aquí alzando nuestra voz porque es muy importante. Y primeramente pues me gustaría agradecerles de antemano al staff del distrito escolar, a los consultantes y a los demógrafos que han estado trabajando en todo esto, pues muchísimas gracias. Y pues nuestra comunidad latina está unida completamente porque somos hermanos de corazón, porque nos unen las mismas causas. Nos importa, nos interesa principalmente la educación de nuestros niños y de la misma manera velar por toda nuestra comunidad. Ahorita tenemos, por ejemplo, demasiado tráfico, el alumbramiento. Estamos también buscando que haya más bibliotecas para nuestros estudiantes. Estamos buscando también más centros de salud para nosotros, la comunidad. Y de la misma manera yo creo que hay muchas necesidades y no acabaríamos de nombrarlas en esta tarde. Pero creo que definitivamente lo que nos tiene ahora el enfoque es el punto número 4, que es nuestro mapa que nosotros presentamos. Y creo que es aquí donde nos gustaría a nosotros pedirles y solicitarles a ustedes trabajar de una manera equitativa y trabajar de la mano. ¿Por qué? Porque yo creo que esto nos puede conllevar a elegir la mejor elección para todos y cada uno de nosotros y para que nuestras comunidades no pierdan su cultura, no pierdan su tradición, no se pierdan esos límites, no se pierdan nuestras escuelas por querer reducir o querer abarcar ciertos límites. Yo creo que eso es lo que menos debemos de tomar en cuenta, sino enfocarnos en que realmente haya una proporción, igualdad de población en esta redistribución de nuestros mapas. ¿Por qué? Porque aquí es donde vamos a mantener nosotros nuestra integridad. Vamos a seguir cultivando, vamos a seguir respetando, como todos los compañeros ya lo han mencionado. Y me gustaría invitarlos de una manera muy cordial a que tuvieran un diálogo, una comunicación, una mesa redonda con nuestro demógrafo para que pudiéramos debatir los puntos de vista y se pudiera llegar a un mejor arreglo para el bienestar de todos y cada uno de nosotros, pero sobre todo de nuestra comunidad. Muchísimas gracias por su atención, que Dios los bendiga.
Good evening. We're here. It's important to have this redistricting process. This is something that's new for us, but it's good that you are listening to our voices because this is an important process. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff from the district, the consultants, and the demographer. I'd like to thank you for listening to us. The Latino community is united. We treat each other as brethren, brothers and sisters. We believe and we support the same causes, which is the education of our children, the safeguarding of our city, and there are so many issues like traffic and lighting. We need more libraries for our students. We need more health centers for the community. We have too many needs to mention. We would never finish. But I'm here to support scenario number 4, map number 4. And I ask you to work with us in this because this provides more equitable distribution. We can work hand in hand to choose the best thing for everybody, for our community, and so that our community does not lose their culture, their tradition. We don't want to lose our schools in just looking for similar numbers. We like to focus on the equity of population in this redistricting process, and we want to keep our integrity in our community and respect one another. So we invite you cordially to have a dialogue with the community, to have some sort of a roundtable with our demographer so that we can have a better distribution of the population for the benefit of all the community. Thank you and God bless you.
Dr. Rodriguez, that concludes public presentations.
Thank you again for being here today and for those comments and all the work that you've done to help provide input and again to attend these sessions. So if we go back to our agenda, we are now going to bring it back for a discussion for the board. And at this point of our agenda, again in accordance with the legal counsel's perspective, we're going to now open it up for a board member to make a motion on a map and also on a sequence. So at this point, Board Member Torres? Okay, go for it.
So I'll move to adopt the scenario 4 as the map with the option 2 sequence, which has trustee area 1, 2, and 3 up for election in 2024, and trustees area 4 and 5 up for election in 2022.
So then we'll see if there is a second to that motion, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So is there a second to that motion? Second by Board Member Alvarez. Okay, so then since you're the one who brought up the motion, then you can speak on it, and then we'll open it up for comments from other board members.
Yes, so I do want to thank the community that has come out consistently, OCO as well as other members of the community since the beginning of this process. It is not easy to give up your evenings this often in the last three-ish months, right? And so I really appreciate all the input, the consistent input, the reflection, the engaging in the dialogue that folks have been a part of. And it's one of the reasons I made a motion to adopt scenario 4, because I know that you must have been meeting outside of these meetings as well, I'm assuming, to have come up with this map and give an input, and that's just a lot of dedication. I also agree with the just general makeup. It's similar to the suggestions that I made at one of the other meetings. And then in terms of the sequencing, both trustee area in 4 and 5 would be vacant if we did not have them both up for 2022. And so we don't want, and as a board, to be in a position where we have vacancies that need to be filled by appointment or through a special election. And so that is my reasoning for both this map and the sequencing. So thank you.
Is there another board member that wants to comment on this item?
I
Board
have some
Member
questions
Palacios?
for our attorney.
Go ahead.
Okay, if you look at scenario 4, and you look at the sequencing in terms of elections, Ms. Torres indicated that trustees areas 1, 2, and 3 would be up for re-election in 2024, and the trustees 4 and 5 areas would be up in 2022. Okay?
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Well, the board has several options with respect to the sequencing. And so, under that option, you would have 3 trustees that live in that area. And say if election is held in 2024 in trustee area 1, then the 2 board members whose terms end in 2022 would go off the board and could run again in 2024. So that would create 2 vacancies on the board, which could be filled with an election in trustee areas 4 and 5. If the 2 board members who were going off the board moved to trustee area 4 and 5, they could run for election in 2022 in trustee areas 4 and 5. But if they choose not to move, then there would be other candidates who run in trustee area 4 and 5.
So in simple terms, the motion basically is, because there are 3 trustees in area 1. 2 of those 3 are up for re-election in 2022.
Correct.
The motion basically is the elections would be 4 and 5 because there's 2 vacancies. And the only choices that those 2 board members in area 1 that up for re-election 22 to be able to run would be to relocate in area 4 and 5. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's basically a political move to eliminate two incumbents from seeking office unless removed. Is that correct?
Well, that's not a question that I would answer. That's
Okay,
a
but
question for the board.
basically, the move is to eliminate the ability for the 2 incumbents up for re-election to run unless they moved. Now, we have a history where board members have ran and moved into the city to run. That's happened. I mean, so that's what the consideration is being made. So from a CVRA way, the elimination of 4 protected class incumbents, does that comply with the CVRA? That means there would be a 40% reduction of Latinos who are in protected class to being on the board.
Possibly.
What is the CVRA?
Well, possibly that we wouldn't know because we don't know who would run in trustee areas 4 and 5. Could be Latino candidates run in trustee 4 and
no.
5, and then they get elected, so the ethnic composition of the board would stay the same. So it just depends on who runs.
But
in
from a
trustee areas
legal
4.
perspective, if the 2 Latino incumbents are being strategically removed from running for office unless they move, you, net effect, have reduced the number of those in the protected class, the number of those in protected class serving on that board.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't have an answer for that
Okay.
because it would be, it's not an issue that's been decided by the courts. So I don't know how a
So
court would rule on that.
it would may not be legally defensible, right?
I really don't know. I couldn't answer that question.
Okay. But it can be challenged.
It could be, yes.
That's correct. That's what I thought. Because the whole idea of CVRA is to give the protected class an opportunity to elect someone of their choice. From an historical side, just go back 30 years. 84% of those who have served on a school board have been of color. Okay? 79% have been Latino. The current population is 79% right now. 5% have been Asian. So 84%. In 1990, 80% of the board was of color. From 1991 to 98, 60% of the board have been of color. From 1998 to 2016, 80% have been of color. And from 2016 to 2021 today, 100% have been of color. And so, you know, so the ability to elect has not, the reason we've never been challenged by any firm, because there is not a case involved. We're very unique. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, this would be an unprecedented case if
Yeah.
somebody challenged this, because Santa Ana is somewhat unique in its ethnic composition. And the idea behind the CVRA was to protect minority classes, but in effect, in Santa Ana Unified, Hispanics are not a minority.
That's
So
correct.
how the courts would rule on the, the theory that you're presenting, or the
Yes.
argument that you're presenting, I couldn't answer you. I don't know how they would
Yeah.
rule.
Now, the other part, the argument was geographic location. 80% of those who've served on the school board for the last 30 years have lived south of 17th. Okay? The notion it's north of 17th has been overrepresented. Actually, the facts don't bear that. Okay? Roughly, of the 80% of the electors that have been south of 17th, about 10% have lived from between 1st and 17th, and 70% have lived south of 1st. Okay? I just happen to know where everybody lives during those periods of time. When you look at it from the issue of, well, we want people who not only look like us, but we need to have similar housing. The city is 65% non-owner occupied, which means 65% of all the housing units in the city are renters, okay? It doesn't matter where you live in the city, you can find large apartment complexes. It doesn't matter if you're in the south, middle, north, people are renting. Or, a lot of these single-family homes are being rented by multiple families. The other argument is, if you look at schools, how our schools are physically done, 90% of our schools are south of 17th, okay? And roughly 80% are south of 1st, okay? If you look at construction, where schools have been built for the last 30 years or modernized, I would venture to say 90% have been south of 1st Street, okay? So when you look from an equity, from a fairness issue, 96% of our student body is Latino, and about roughly 98, 99% are of color, okay? So when you look from an equity side, in terms of when you deal with litigation, you're looking as to how your Title I's, how the kids are being served, the English learners and whatnot. The district in my 30 years, not 30 years, 23 years, beginning my 24th year on the board, has never, I don't ever recall a discussion, and we actually happen to have a board member here, Dr. Audrey Noji, has ever discussed, well, we should build it over here because that community doesn't have. We built where the need was, okay? And that's why the construction of schools and services has been that way. If 96% of your student body is or 98% is of color, and your Title I, your English learners, your special, they're all reflecting the same. There's not an issue in terms of equity access, whether it's facility or whether it's academic access. And so, so that's important to look. See, there was never when I talked to the ACR lawyers, they never had a case. There's no way in God's earth could you have won that case. So it's not a requirement in Santa Ana. We're very unique, okay? And I went 30 because that was a good turnoff. Anyway, by any stretch of imagination, there is not an issue of access, whether it's representation, ability to elect, or whether it's academic, classroom, facility access, and whatnot. So there is no, you know, I listen real intently when people talk about, well, we got access to parks, we got access to traffic issues. Those are city issues, city of Santa Ana issues. These aren't the district. You know, most of our overcrowding in this district has been land use issues by the city. You know, in the 70s and the 80s, early 90s, there was a lot of single-family neighborhoods were destroyed to accommodate multi-dwelling units. And so they increased the density of housing, they eliminated single-family homes, and they decreased the number of parking requirements. So the growth in the city district has been, the pressure has been on the district because of the decisions made by the city in those years, and you still pay that price. And so when you lay this, it's real important from the, when you look at the big picture. I mean, we'd like to say it's CBRA, it's ACLU, it's illegal. No, it's not. It's only a challenge if you have a case. Now remember, when you're a CVRA challenge, is it fair to say, Mr. Wincart, that the loser pays?
Well, it could be, yeah. If the school district loses a case, it could end up having to pay attorney's fees, yes.
So the loser pays. So that's why the ACLU never sued us, or any other entity that has been suing up and down the state. I was involved in that issue with Senator Polanco, and I was involved with Maldiv, so I understand this real clearly. And I think there's, now, the other thing is there was an argument that, well, all these board members have lived north of 17th. Well, that's not true. There have only been 5 school board members that have lived north of 17th in the last 30-some years. Okay? 3 of them sit on this board. Ms. Amezcua, Dr. Rodriguez, and myself. Prior to that, only Sal Mendoza and Rob Richardson in his second term lived north of 17th. So the reality is, in spite of where people live, and they were primarily in the areas everyone was talking about, the neighborhoods, boards have made the right decisions relative to equity in terms of access to academic programs and access to facilities. And when you start, where you have to be real careful is that because Santa Unified is very small, relatively speaking, it's about 24 square miles, and actually even smaller when you really take out the Irvine area. You know, it's real tough. Our schools do not follow these boundaries. Okay, they don't follow our school boundaries. There's no way that you can develop these are the feeder schools to feed by district. There's no way you can do it, because our communities are built out and the schools were built wherever we had the ability to build, or we expanded wherever we could. So anyway, so when you look at this was, we said this from the very beginning, this was a political move by the board majority. If you can't beat them in the polls, you eliminate them by voting to get them out this way without even an election, unless they want us to go move. Now, some board members here moved into the city, or not into the, either into the city or into the district for the purposes of running. I'm one of 2 board members, I think Rob Balin was the other, whose kids went to school from kindergarten to 12th grade and graduated. Only 2 of us. Now, there are a lot of reasons why people didn't, but I say that because I've been vested. I know what our school's like. Some of them have, we have, I was listening to the city council and they were arguing, well, you know, for the first time we got people that have grew up in Santa Ana or went to school in Santa Ana and understand this community. I can tell you that most of the board members have some connection to Santa Ana in terms of either the kids went to school here or they went to, they themselves went to school here, graduates, right? And I think we're very proud of that. And so I say that because that is what this is really about. This is not an open dialogue about let's be fair, let's be right, you know. So my last question, who was involved in the changing of the scenario 4, because originally, I think Oco did 1 and 4. And I know that some of the board members wanted to meet with them. Who was involved in doing that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I was
Who is involved in
Yeah,
developing? scenario?
both Rigo, Dr. Rodriguez and Carolyn both indicated that they wanted to meet with Oco, which is not Santa Ana. They're based in Anaheim. They serve Santa, but they're based in Anaheim, just for the record. They indicated they want to meet with Oco to look at the plans. Is that the product that some board members in conjunction with Oco put together?
I wouldn't have that information. I did have one telephone conversation with Karen Alvarado about scenario 4 a few weeks ago, but that was the limit of my contact with Oco.
Okay.
Who else wants to speak on this item? You wanna? Board Member Mescal?
So Jerry, just to piggyback, Jerry, you're the superintendent. Did the board members meet with Oco?
Not to my knowledge.
So if there's a public record request, then we'll be able to pull that information to see if they did, because they should not be meeting with Oco.
Correct.
Okay. So Ron, just to look at, I'm looking at the email that you sent to us. And it says, the board may make a recommendation to the county committee on the sequencing, but if 2 or more trustee areas are vacant, the county committee makes the final decision on the sequencing of the 2 vacant trustee areas by lot. So is that what you're saying here, is that the recommendation that Ms. Torres made, sequencing 1, 2, and 3, that leaves 2 vacant? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so then your information here that the county committee makes the final decision on the sequencing, is that also correct?
That's correct, yes.
So tonight is just a recommendation.
Yes, I can tell you though, from experience, that because before I worked for the Atkinson Anderson lawyer Rudin Romo, I was the general counsel for the Orange County
Correct.
Department of Education, and I used to advise the county committee that the county committee generally follows the recommendations of the school board.
And that's good to know. I just want to know the process so the community also knows that.
Yeah.
That tonight is a recommendation and that the county will make the final decision on the sequencing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and let me just add a little bit of information for those people in the audience.
Okay.
The county committee is made up of 11 people, 2 from each supervisorial district and 1 person at large. They're nominated by the governing boards of the school districts, and they serve, it's called, the formal name is the Orange County Committee on School District Organization, and they review the maps and the sequencing and make the final decision. And like, as I said, I used to be their legal advisor. They, in the years that I advised them, they generally followed the recommendations of the school board.
But my point is they are the final say.
Yes.
So it's good to know they follow the recommendation. And I don't have a problem. The board majority is going to vote however they want to vote. I've served this district very well. So I'm not, and when I walk away in 2022, I walk away with my head held high because I'm one of the best damn board members sitting up here. I'm involved in the community. I'm out in the schools. I answer my emails. I visit with parents. I advocate for our students. We have board members that sit up here that do not go out, do not know our community. They're here for their own personal agenda. And Mr. Palacio's right. They can't beat us on the ballot citywide. They cannot. But they can beat us this way. And that's okay. It's all love and war and politics. This is how it works. So I want the community to understand, this is not just about serving you, because this board has served you very well. Because when it was the 4 of us, we served you very well. And since I've been on this board, we've served you well. Prior to me, Dr. Noji and Rob Richardson and Mr. Hernandez, they served you very well. Mr. Palacio, they served you very well. So Mr. Palacio is correct that if this matter is challenged in court, it'll be very interesting, Mr. Ron, it'll be very interesting to see if the district wins, because it's a very interesting case here with Santa Ana Unified.
It's unusual facts, unusual circumstances, is very unique. So that's why when Mr. Palacio asked me the question, what a court would do, I can't predict what a court would do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But I just want to be clear that I'm not against district elections. I support them. If that's what the community wants, I will support it. What I don't like is the political BS. The only reason the board majority is coming after us is because, one, we ask too many questions and we hold people accountable. Two, we advocate for our community and our students. We're very transparent about what goes on. There's no backdoor agendas here. There's no movidas in the background. And again, we answer emails, we answer phone calls, and we're gonna always advocate. My family's been in this community a long time, 80 plus years. I'm always gonna advocate, and I'm not going away. So whether it's 2022 or 2024, it doesn't matter. It's like looking at Audrey in the back area. She hasn't gone away. She sat on this board a long time. She's here for a reason tonight. And other people that have been in this community a long time. So just understand that the school board cannot take care of anything that it's the city's responsibility. We don't do street lights. At this time, we're not doing crossing guards. We'd go broke. And if you haven't paid attention, please pay attention that we don't have a police chief. And if we don't get a police chief, our police department will go away. And the board majority has never been a fan of our police department. They have talked about it many times. So be careful what you wish for. Be careful. Pay close attention. And when you put other people on this board, pay close attention. Because a board member stated up here, we want people who think like us. Well, be careful when everybody's a yes person. Be careful when they don't ask questions, because it's your children and your grandchildren. Because it may look good on the outside, but inside it smells really bad. One of the parents talked about libraries. Mr. Palacio and I have been on the dais talking about libraries at our schools. I see an LMT in the back of the room. Thank you, Medea, for joining us. We had $319 million from COVID. I think some schools got like $4,000, $6,000, $7,000 for libraries. Why has the board majority not said every school needs a library full of books? Why? And why are they not 8-hour LMTs? And why are they not open to our parents and our students? Because that's not a priority. Other things are. So whatever the decision is, I support it. I'm not going to move to run for office. It's not that important to me and my personal life and my home and my family. And I'm not that kind of person that I got to move to stay in this position, because my family and my heart and the work that we do in this community doesn't go away. And this may be a longer process than some of you think, because if it does get challenged in court, it will take a little while. And again, this board, since I've been sitting here, we've served, I can talk about the work that a few of us have done, we've served the community very well. So please take up the issues with the city, that are city issues with the city. And I appreciate that those that spoke tonight talked about education for your children. That's what this is about. This is about the education for your child, for your grandchildren. We should be giving your child the best education possible. Whether there's special ed, gen ed, and special ed is part of gen ed, don't forget that, because this fight is not over. This is just the beginning. And I can't wait to be out of office, because I'm far more dangerous out of office than I am in office. And I'm going to join the fight for special ed and for our kids. So whatever the decision is made, I'm all okay with it. But be careful what you wish for. And Mr. Palacio is correct. The only reason this has come up is because the board majority can't beat us at the ballot box. Because citywide, we're top vote getters, because we do a good job. They can only beat us this way. And I don't care what comments they make afterwards to try to sound smart and to try to sound like they're special and they know what they're doing and this is the right thing to do, because they're a Latino community. We need to have representation. We're all Latinos up here, all of us, and we represent our community well. So thank you for attending tonight. Thank you for all the public comments. Thank you for all the work. I really appreciate it. And again, we have to see how this rolls out in the next couple of months. So thank you.
Board Member Alvarez, any comments or questions? Okay. Thank you. So on my end, again, thank you all for being here. I am going to support the motion, which would be map 4, and also the proposed sequence for elections for 2022 and 2024. I want to make 3 general comments as to why I'm supporting this motion. The first 2 are general, and then the last one is more specific. The first, I want to note that this has been an open process. All of the meetings have been duly announced. The district also sent letters to the whole community. I think we paid like $39,000 to get a letter in every single household. The outreach also went beyond just the letter, our website, our schools. And we also had those first 2-3 sessions that focused on criteria. So members of the public came in to tell us about what's really meaningful to them, around which we wanted to construct some maps. And that was the focus of our last session. We looked at various maps, including we heard that there would be an option number 4 that came out of a community group, in this case, OCO. And then for the record, and I'm looking at members of OCO, I was never involved in a conversation with you that built the map, and I'm looking at them directly so that everybody can see that there was no involvement on my end in the nitty-gritty that led to this map. And I, in particular, am very proud that a community brought forward a map. I have never heard in the context of the city of Santa Ana that we've actually had a community-driven map in such a process. And I thank you for sticking with this process and learning as you went, because we were all learning. I'll speak for myself. I was also learning as we went. So I want to be very clear about that. And then also in terms of the general comment, I think all 4 maps abide by the criteria that are specified in the CVRA. And that's where cooperative strategies and our legal counsel would have pointed out that there was something illegal if they had seen something that could not be acceptable according to the California Voting Rights Act. And so I'm assuming that that's still the case, right? So that's kind of point 1. It's been an open process. We've had a chance to talk here in these settings, and that's really important, right? Because that way this comes from a community, an open process. The second thing I want to say is that, and this I'm now getting more specific to scenario 4, is that scenario 4, as well as the others, but scenario 4 also does a wonderful job of respecting and also the abiding by all of the requirements as it relates to race and ethnicity that are required by law. There was these technical terms like packing and all this other stuff that we wanted to stay away from. The other thing that scenario 4 does that was brought up by in public comments is that it also codifies community integrity, right? To the best of our ability, making sure that each of these 5 wards are following what we know of are communities that already exist and that see themselves as communities, culturally, linguistically. And then the last thing I want to say about scenario 4 is that it's also a community-driven map. It's a community-driven map. And to me, if all were equal, if all were equally as good, that last part would influence my vote as it is tonight, because it is important for us to, as elected officials, to listen to our community and to trust that whether or not the organization's administrative offices are in Anaheim or I don't know where, I trust that the residents that came today and over the last number of sessions, they live in our city, they're grounded in our city, their kids go to our schools, and that is a really precious knowledge that we, I think, ought to respect and honor. Let me say a couple more things, and then I'll call the question. I want to clarify that the focus for today is not whether or not we're going to go to by trustee districts. That decision was already made back in August. The question for today is which map are we going to choose and what sequencing are we going to follow in terms of elections. I want to be clear about that because all of us up here voted to go to by trustee elections. So that, to me, on a 5-0 vote, shows that all of us are committed to democratizing further our electoral system. And speaking for myself, an at-large system is less open to everyday folks running and supporting candidates than a by-district approach, right? I also want to point out that it was not any of us as board members that brought up the issue of going to district-based election. That was actually brought to us by the community. So the idea that this is a strategic move by board members against other board members doesn't abide by the fact that we never were the ones who initiated this. It was community members who brought this up. And also, and I'll say this on my end, that my vote for this process was never based on whether or not we were going to be sued using the California Voting Rights Act, although the California Voting Rights Act has been instrumental in other places like Anaheim and other places where the change had to happen. I did this because it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing. So to me, the legal challenge is less than the moral imperative, and that's what has been driving my decision. And so on that note, I am enthusiastically supporting this particular motion, and I call the question. Is there a second to calling the question?
Second.
All right, so then let's go ahead and vote on this matter. So all of those in favor of the motion, go ahead and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against signify by saying no.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, all those abstaining? So Board Member Palacio, Board Member Mezcala?
I'm abstaining.
Abstain, okay, so 2 abstentions, 3 in favor, so the motion carries. We have now made a final decision as a board on which map and sequencing. I want to reiterate that the next step, though, is that our map and the board motion that has passed today on the sequencing does go to a county committee. And let me turn to Ron to see, like, how would that process play out, timeline and things like that, to the best of our knowledge at this point.
Starting this week, I'll contact the Orange County Committee on School District Organization, the staff, and let them know that the board made a decision. We'll send them a copy of the resolution with the attached map and the recommended sequencing. And then they'll schedule a hearing in Santa Ana for the public to come and provide input, and then they'll make the final decision. So that meeting will probably take place somewhere in mid-January or February, I would guess. They'll work out the schedule with the district, make it convenient. It'll be somewhere, most likely at the district office. They're required by law to hold the meeting in the school district.
Okay.
So that's the usual practice. They vote on it. If they approve it, then it's sent to the registrar of voters to be implemented.
Okay. So then we'll probably end up contacting folks who have been coming to these meetings one last time to let them know about the meeting. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So with that, then we are done with our regular agenda. So let's move over to any final board reports. Any final board reports from fellow board members? Hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned. Let me use the gavel. And then the next regular board agenda is next week on Tuesday, December 14th at 5 o'clock at the district office. Thank you so much for attending. And I did get a question around whether someone can take the maps or whether those can stay with us. So it's like at the end of a quinceañera, whoever takes the map is theirs. All right?